Vegan Karen slaps my disabled son over barbecue. Then calls the cops on me. Wow. What a wild ride. Can you believe how far Lisa went just to push her beliefs on others? Now, we want to hear from you. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments. We love seeing our community from all over the world. Globe showing America's sparkles, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because tomorrow, we've got another jaw-dropping story that you won't want to miss. Trust me, it's going to be even crazier. Fire, see you in the next one. For as long as I can remember, my neighbor Lisa has had a personal vendetta against me. Not because of anything serious, no property disputes, no loud parties, nothing like that. No, Lisa's hatred for me comes down to one simple thing: my backyard barbecues. To her, the very idea of grilling meat is an unforgivable crime, and since I do it often, that makes me her number one enemy. Now, don't get me wrong. I have no problem with Lisa being vegan. People should eat whatever makes them happy. If tofu and kale bring her joy, that's great. But Lisa isn't just a vegan, she's a missionary for the cause. It's not just her diet, it's her entire personality. Every conversation, no matter the topic, somehow leads back to her crusade against meat. One time, I was outside fixing my fence, struggling to secure a wooden panel. Lisa walked by, smirked, and said, "Maybe if you didn't eat dead animals, you'd have more energy for that." Another time, my wife was walking our dog, and Lisa stopped her just to say, "Do you ever feel guilty feeding him the flesh of other innocent beings? Imagine how much healthier he'd be if he just ate plants." My wife was too stunned to respond and just hurried away. But the worst moment, the one that really showed how far Lisa was willing to go, was when my cousin brought over his newborn daughter to meet the family. We were all gathered around, admiring her tiny fingers and soft baby sounds, when suddenly, Lisa's head popped over the fence. Completely uninvited, she blurted out, "I hope you're raising her on a plant-based diet." It's so sad to see babies pumped full of dairy and meat when they deserve better. It was like she had vegan radar, this uncanny ability to sniff out any conversation and turn it into a lecture. No topic was safe. We could be talking about the weather, a neighborhood event, even something as random as car maintenance, and Lisa would somehow twist it into another reason why eating meat was evil. The thing is, I never confronted her. I never argued. I figured it wasn't worth the energy. She had her beliefs, and I had mine. But the problem wasn't that Lisa was passionate about veganism, it was that she wanted control. It wasn't enough for her to make her own choices, she needed to enforce them on everyone else. And that's where things started to get out of hand. Because for Lisa, simply expressing her views wasn't enough. She wanted to dictate what the entire neighborhood could eat. And as I would soon find out, she was willing to take extreme measures to make that happen. I thought dealing with her constant lectures was bad enough. But I had no idea just how far she was willing to go, until she set her sights on my son. At first, I thought Lisa's obsession with my barbecues was just an annoying personality quirk, something I could brush off and ignore. But I was wrong. Lisa didn't just dislike the smell of grilled meat, she saw it as a direct attack on her existence. It started with small things. She'd glare at me through the fence whenever I fired up the grill. She'd sigh dramatically whenever she walked past my backyard. She even went as far as putting up pro-vegan posters around the neighborhood, filled with graphic images and slogans about animal cruelty. It was over the top, but honestly, I didn't care. I figured she'd get tired eventually and move on. But Lisa never moved on. Instead, she escalated. One evening, as I was setting up for a family barbecue, I heard my name being called from the sidewalk. I turned to see Lisa standing there, arms crossed, her face twisted with frustration. "Unbelievable," she snapped. "You're doing this again?" I sighed, already exhausted from the conversation I knew was coming. "Lisa, it's my backyard. I can have a barbecue if I want." She scoffed, shaking her head. "Do you ever think about how disgusting it is? The smell of burning flesh? The suffering behind it?" I kept my voice calm. "If you don't like it, just go inside. No one's forcing you to stand here and breathe it in." That only made her angrier. Her hands clenched into fists. "I shouldn't have to," she snapped. "I live next door. Your selfish choices are ruining my air. Cooking meat should be banned in neighborhoods like this. It's just as bad as smoking." I couldn't help but laugh. "Lisa, there's no rule against barbecuing. I can eat whatever I want, and I can cook whatever I want. You don't have to like it, but you don't get to control it." She glared at me, her expression unreadable. Then, just as I thought she was done, she dropped the real bombshell. "You think this is just about you?" she sneered. "I'm calling my vegan group. We're putting an end to these barbecues once and for all." I raised an eyebrow. "You really think you can ban barbecues?" Her eyes gleamed with self-righteous determination. "Not just me. There are plenty of people who think like I do. People who actually care about the planet. If we get enough signatures, the HOA will have to listen to us." I stared at her, barely able to believe what I was hearing. "Lisa, there is no rule against barbecuing. You and your group of activists don't get to rewrite the laws just because you don't like them." She smirked, shaking her head. "You'll see. Once we organize, you won't have a choice. This entire neighborhood is going vegan." With that, she turned and stormed off, probably to rally her army of outraged suburban warriors. I should have been angry, but honestly, I was amused. The idea that she could actually ban meat in an entire neighborhood was so ridiculous, it was almost funny. Almost. Because as I would soon find out, Lisa wasn't just talking. She was dead serious. And the next time I fired up my grill, she was ready to take things way too far. I thought Lisa's ridiculous plan to ban meat in the entire neighborhood was as far as she would go. I figured she'd gather a few like-minded activists, maybe start an online petition, and then move on when she realized no one was taking her seriously. I was wrong. Lisa wasn't just talking big, she was obsessed. She wanted control, and she wasn't going to stop until she got it. A few weeks passed, and things seemed quiet. Too quiet. Lisa hadn't confronted me, hadn't ranted about my murderous eating habits, and, for once, my family enjoyed our barbecues in peace. But then came the day that changed everything. It was a Friday afternoon, the perfect weather for a barbecue. The sun was shining, the grill was sizzling, and the backyard was filled with the sound of laughter and clinking drinks. My family had gathered, chatting and catching up, enjoying a meal together like we always did. And then there was my son, Ethan. He was 10 years old and had spent his entire life in a wheelchair due to a birth defect. But despite the challenges he faced, he was the happiest kid I knew. And if there was one thing that always made his day, it was chicken wings. That afternoon, as I pulled a fresh batch off the grill, I made sure Ethan got the first plate, just like I always did. His face lit up with excitement as he grabbed one and took a big bite. "Thanks, Dad," he beamed, already reaching for another. It was one of those perfect moments, the kind that makes everything feel right. And then Lisa happened. Before I even knew she was there, I heard a sharp, sickening slap, followed by my son's shocked, confused cry. My stomach dropped. My heart pounded. I spun around, scanning the yard, and then I saw her. Lisa. Standing over my son. Uninvited. Unhinged. And Ethan, his hands trembling, his plate knocked to the ground, his favorite food scattered in the dirt. For a moment, time froze. My brain struggled to process what I was seeing. Lisa had slapped the food right out of my son's hands. Ethan looked up at her, his face twisted in fear and confusion. He barely even knew this woman. Why had she just attacked him? And then rage hit me like a freight train. Before I could react, Lisa started screaming. "Eating chicken is bad," she shrieked, her voice shaking with fanaticism. "Your parents are making you sick. They don't care about your health. They're hurting you by feeding you that disgusting, rotting meat." My 10-year-old son sat there, frozen in shock. His small fists clenched in his lap. His lips trembled, not just from fear, but from confusion. Lisa had no idea what she had just done. This wasn't just some argument about food anymore. She had come after my child. And she had no idea the kind of war she had just started. For a second, I couldn't move. I couldn't think. My brain refused to process what had just happened. Lisa had just attacked my son. Not only had she slapped the food out of his hands, but now, she was screaming at him like he was some kind of criminal. My son, my 10-year-old boy, who had already been through more struggles than she could ever comprehend, was sitting there, shaking in his wheelchair, staring up at this deranged woman who had stormed into his safe space. And then, I saw it. Lisa's hand tensed. Her face twisted with rage. And before I could fully process what was happening, she raised her hand again. This time, there were no more chicken wings to slap away. She was going to hit my son. That realization hit me like a lightning bolt, and suddenly, I wasn't frozen anymore. I moved. Fast. Before her hand could come down, I was already there. I stepped between her and my child so fast that she barely had time to react. My body blocked my son completely, my hands clenched into tight fists, my blood boiling like I had never felt before. "What the hell do you think you're doing, Lisa?" The words exploded from me, booming across the yard so loudly that the entire barbecue came to a screeching halt. Lisa flinched, but she didn't back down. Instead, she doubled down. "I'm trying to save him," she shrieked, her voice so high-pitched it felt like nails on a chalkboard. "You're the one making him sick. Feeding him garbage that's keeping him in that chair." I saw red. She pointed a shaking finger at my son. "Don't you want to see him walk? Don't you want him to be normal?" My stomach twisted. I looked down at Ethan. His small hands were gripping his wheelchair, his eyes darting between me and Lisa, trying to understand what was happening. He didn't fully grasp her words, but he understood one thing. She was saying there was something wrong with him. That was it. That was the final straw. I lost it. "How dare you come onto my property and talk to my son like that?" I stepped forward, my voice thick with rage. "Is slapping him supposed to be your great cure, Lisa? Or are you just so bitter about a damn barbecue that you decided to take it out on a disabled child?" Lisa's smug expression finally faltered. For the first time, she looked nervous. but she still refused to back down. And that's when the police arrived. The sound of sirens cut through the chaos, and within seconds, 2 squad cars pulled up in front of my house. Lisa's face lit up. "Officer! Officer," she wailed, pointing at me like a lunatic. "Arrest him. He's breaking the law. He's abusing his own child. He's holding an illegal gathering, and they're eating meat in a vegan-only neighborhood." For a moment, no one said anything. Even the cops looked stunned. One officer, a tall man who looked like he had seen way too much nonsense in his career, let out a long sigh. "Ma'am," he said, his voice flat. "Can you repeat that?" And that's when I knew. Lisa had officially lost her damn mind. For a moment, there was silence. The cops just stared at Lisa, clearly trying to process what kind of insanity they had just walked into. "Let me get this straight," one officer said, rubbing his temple like he was already regretting his life choices. "You called 911 because your neighbors are having a barbecue?" Lisa stomped her foot. "It's not just a barbecue," she screeched. "They're forcing a child to eat meat. This is a vegan-only neighborhood, and they're violating the rules." I couldn't help it, I laughed. A vegan-only neighborhood? Where the hell was that written? "Lisa," I said, crossing my arms, "you don't get to make up laws just because you don't like what your neighbors eat." The cop sighed, then turned to me. "Sir, can you explain what's actually going on?" I nodded. "We're having a normal family barbecue, on my property, with my family." Lisa stormed in, slapped food out of my son's hands, and started screaming at him. That got their attention. "She put her hands on a child?" the officer asked, his tone suddenly sharper. Before I could answer, Ethan rolled forward in his wheelchair. His voice was small but steady. "She hit my chicken wings," he said seriously. "And now they're all dirty, and I can't eat them anymore." The officer blinked. He looked at Ethan, then at Lisa, then exhaled so hard I thought he might collapse. "Ma'am," he said, pinching the bridge of his nose, "you do realize that putting your hands on a child, especially one with a disability, is a serious offense?" Lisa's smug expression finally cracked. She opened her mouth, then shut it. Then opened it again, like she was trying to come up with an excuse but was too far gone. The officer took a step forward. "I strongly suggest we don't receive another call about you harassing this family, because next time, you let the sentence hang in the air." Lisa swallowed hard. For a second, I actually thought she might back down. But then, like the complete lunatic she was, she did something so mind-blowingly stupid that it sealed her fate once and for all. She lunged. Right in front of the cops. This time, she wasn't going for chicken wings. She was going for my son. It happened fast. Her hand shot forward, reaching for Ethan, maybe to push him, maybe to hit him. But she never made it. Before she could touch him, one of the officers moved like lightning. Boom. Lisa hit the ground face first. Right into the dirt. Right into the spot where Ethan's chicken wings had landed. For a second, no one moved. Then, laughter. Loud, uncontrollable, absolute cackling erupted from my family. Lisa lifted her face, covered in barbecue sauce, dirt, and pure karma. And that's when the officer finally said the words I had been waiting to hear. "All right, that's enough. Ma'am, you're under arrest for child endangerment." Lisa's screech could probably be heard from space. What? You can't do this. I'm the victim. The officer, clearly done with this entire situation, let out a sigh. Ma'am, you just tried to attack a child. In front of police officers. Congratulations, you played yourself. As they dragged Lisa toward the squad car, Ethan, my brilliant, sharp-witted son, looked at her and said, deadpan. Guess you don't have a problem eating meat now, huh? The entire backyard exploded with laughter. And just like that, Lisa was gone. The neighborhood was quieter. My family was relieved. And my son? Well, let's just say he recovered from the ordeal a lot faster than Lisa did. But karma wasn't done with her yet. Because a few months later, I started hearing rumors. Turns out, Lisa had bigger problems than my barbecue. The IRS had been digging into her finances. And guess what? She hadn't paid her taxes in years. Her business shut down. Her so-called perfect vegan lifestyle? Gone. And me? I fired up the grill, gathered my family, and enjoyed another barbecue. Without Lisa in sight. We want to hear from you. What do you think about Lisa's outrageous behavior? Have you ever had a neighbor like this, someone who thinks they can control how others live? Let us know in the comments. And here's a fun question. What's your go-to barbecue dish? Are you team ribs, burgers, hot dogs, or maybe even grilled veggies? Drop your favorite in the comments below. Hamburger fire. Also, where are you watching from? We love seeing our community from all over the world, so comment your city or country and let's see how far our stories are reaching. Globe showing Americas. If you enjoyed this wild ride, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more crazy real-life stories like this. We post every day, and trust me, you won't want to miss tomorrow's story. It's even more jaw-dropping. Astonished face. Now, let's get this comment section buzzing. What would you have done if Lisa came after your kid? Let's talk about it below. Down arrow.